Okay. Welcome to the Triple AI podcast series, Generations in Dialogues, Bridging Perspectives in AI. Through these podcasts, through this series, we aim to represent the diverse perspectives across generations, fostering rich conversations about the ever-changing landscape of AI. Generations in Dialogue aims to feature unique outlooks from AI experts, practitioners, enthusiasts of all backgrounds, and each episode will cover important topics ranging from delving deeper into the history of AI to exploring the future ethical implications of its newest technologies. My name is Ella, and I'll be the host for today, and I'm so honored to be introducing our guest, Dr. Andreea Bobu. Dr. Andreea Bobu is an assistant professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, holding positions in both the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics and the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, or CSAIL. She leads the Collaborative Learning and Autonomy Research Lab, or CLEAR Lab, where her research focuses on developing autonomous agents that learn to perform tasks for, with, and around people. Her goal is to ensure that these agents' behaviors align with human expectations, facilitating seamless human-robot interactions. Throughout her career, Dr. Bobu has been recognized with several honors, including the Apple Ph.D. Scholars in AI and ML Fellowship, the Rising Stars and EECS Distinction, and the Best Paper Awards at the ACM or IEEE International Conference on Human-Robot Interaction. She has also held research positions at the Boston Dynamics AI Institute and the NVIDIA Research. Dr. Bobu, we're so excited to have you today. All
Thank
right,
you so much. This is an awesome introduction. I'm super excited to be here.
amazing. So we'll just dive into the first question then. So, first question is, what exactly inspired you to choose your research direction to explore human-centric AI?
Yeah, so I guess this kind of has two parts. There's first, why did I choose to do AI? And then specifically, why human-centric AI? And I guess I kind of became fascinated with AI in undergrad because I was really excited about computers doing these tasks in seconds that would take me hours maybe to do. Like, like a simple programming loop to add 100 numbers, it takes it just like milliseconds, and it takes me at least 10 minutes maybe. And so I was really fascinated by this idea of like, how can AI amplify human capability? How can it do things that maybe are undesirable for us to do, or maybe dangerous for us to do? How can it make things faster and more accessible? So that's why AI. And then the why human centric is I started working in robotics, and when you think about robots and AI kind of doing things in the physical world, you're realizing that, oh, hey, these systems are not really like the reason we have these systems is so that they're useful for us. Then we better make sure that they can adapt to people and that they are human centric. And so that's why I got interested in doing research in this direction.
That's incredibly fascinating. I feel like nowadays with AI just increasing so quickly, one of the biggest concerns that people have is is AI going to be a tool or is it going to be kind of an obstacle? And I feel like by being able to focus on human-centric AI, it really allows for us to not just look at the technicality behind what AI is capable of, but also how it's able to actually impact society in a beneficial way. That's incredibly fascinating. How would you say your perspective in general has evolved over time? Were there certain experiences that you went through which kind of shifted your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when I started my PhD, there was this boom in using deep learning in AI. I mean, I started my PhD in 2017. I think Alex and that had happened just a few years before, and I think everyone was like on this deep learning trend, and it was super easy to think, oh, like get more data, build bigger models, and therefore you'll get better AI. And I guess over time, my perspective has shifted. Like, people aren't actually perfect data sources, they're fallible, we're inconsistent, we change our minds, we have biases, and therefore the data that we have and we leak and we give is also going to not be perfect. And so my perspective has shifted in that, hey, like if we want to have these AI systems that work with people and also that are less fallible than we are, then we can't just have AI systems passively learn from people. We need to be a little bit more careful about how these systems learn from our data and what exactly they learn from our data.
Yeah, wait, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, do you have any thoughts about like how exact, or maybe a specific example where you were able to really focus on like proactively being able to ensure that the AI that you were making wasn't biased or too reliant on like any data imperfections?
Um, Let me think. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna maybe answer this by thinking about how we used to program robots, or how a lot of people in robotics, at least when I was starting my PhD, the way that they kind of program robots to execute behavior is, for example, you have a system designer that sits down and defines this is something that the robot should care about. Like it should care about being efficient or having a smooth path or whatever, or like making sure that the mug that it's carrying is kept upright and it doesn't spill or something like that. And I guess in a way, so this isn't data driven, but in a way it is like a system designer instilling their own bias and knowledge, but also bias into what a robot should care about. And because all humans are fallible, the system designer will inevitably, and we found this in our research, that the designer will inevitably forget to write things, or they will write the wrong things for the robot to optimize over. And so we would see things like, oh, we thought we wrote out everything perfectly, like this cost function or reward function for the robot to optimize. And then we run the algorithm, we see that it actually executes this path that sure it doesn't spill and it like doesn't like smash into the table or anything, but it gets in my face, or it moves too uncomfortably close to me because the system designer never thought to specify, oh, by the way, proxemics or this notion of like personal space bubble is something you should care about.
Yeah.
So I think there's this gap of like what we think we should program into robots or into AI, or what we think we should give AI data for, and what we then later find out that, oh, actually that wasn't complete, that wasn't everything, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. So there's this gap, there's always going to be this gap, and I'm really interested in how you close this gap. And that's kind of why I think we need maybe more interactive forms of training our AI systems. I don't think we can just one shot train our AI agents in a factory and then deploy them to a person's home, or deploy them, I don't know, as an AI assistant to a person and just expect it to work out of the box. There has to be some adaptation that happens.
Definitely. I think one important thing that you kind of know is almost like because robots are really like starting from scratch, they don't have a sense of like common sense. Like things that maybe humans just innately like have like from the moment that we're born. It's like maybe we need to actually proactively like program these into robots to make sure that they're like aware of themselves. Amazing. So I feel like you definitely touched upon exactly what human-centric AI means to you, and also I guess how like from back when you started your PhD up to now, you've been able to work on being able to like fully better understand maybe how AI can be more human-like and more beneficial to humans. So I guess the next question might just be like, can you share an example of how your work has adopted AI systems to better understand human behaviors?
Yeah, so I guess this is kind of related to the example that I just gave of the system designer, thought that these are the things that the robot should care about, but then the end user actually realizes that, hey, like you're staying way too close to my face, or hey, you shouldn't carry this mug of coffee above my personal laptop because I'm really scared that you're going to spill on it, and I spent $2,000 on it or something. So I guess I did some work in my PhD on how we can, and I guess we're still working on this in my new lab, on how we can kind of close this gap between what the user wants and what the system designer initially specified. And so we're trying to figure out ways in which end users who are not experts can teach robots new things that they care about, but with and so when you do that, you need to think about like how can they do it in a way that's easy for them. So like what kind of interface of communicating
Mhm.
what they want we should have,
Yeah.
but also in a way that doesn't require too much effort, because I'll be honest, if I get a robot in my home and then the robot says, "Hey, I need an hour of your time," I'll be like, "Nah, I'm returning that."
That makes sense.
So you need to think about ways in which humans can instill their preferences and their values and their goals easily into their robots and into their systems, but in a way that doesn't expend too much effort from them, but that is also easy and like accessible for them to do.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's a really tricky challenge. And so we've done some work in this space.
Yeah.
We've run some user studies, and we came up with these new types of feedback. That maybe I'll just talk about one example. There was this new type of feedback that was kind of at its core trying to be very informative. So like pack a punch in terms of the amount of data that it has, while also being super simple to the person to give.
Mhm.
And so we ran a bunch of user studies, and we saw that yeah, regular people can actually like use this type of input to teach robots what they want,
Mhm.
and it works well, and it only takes like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or like very little human data. So that's kind of
Oh.
the key motivation of what we're trying to do in the lab. How can humans teach robots what, or AI systems in general, what they want with in a intuitive way with little effort, and also communicate a lot, just kind of all at once.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess I have a quick follow-up question from that then. It's like there's definitely no right answer to it, but I'm sure we've all seen movies where it's like robots are just so like closely integrated with like human life and it can like help you do so many things, whether it be like I don't know, like this thought of like having a flying car, for example. What do you think is gonna, or in your opinion, what do you think is gonna be the timeline for like how we're gonna be able to integrate robots into AI and what might be the next steps that we can do to ensure that it's integrated correctly?
Do you mean integrate
Sorry, robots
robots
into
into
humans. Yeah, humans.
right? I mean, to some extent, we're starting to see that a little bit. Like, self-driving cars are probably the most advanced form of this. You can see self-driving cars, Waymo cars in Phoenix, Arizona, and San Francisco, California. Um, that said, there's some limitations. There's like only certain parts of the city where they're allowed to operate. They're not allowed on highways, or not that I know of. If you want to have them exist in Cambridge, where I live, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Or no, I don't think so, because the domain gap between the type of data, visual data that you see in San Francisco is just so different from what you see in Cambridge, and the types of streets that you see, and the types of norms, like driving norms that you see. Like, for example, most streets in Cambridge, you cannot turn right on red. And I don't think that's true anywhere in California. But now whenever I go to California and I drive, I need to remind myself that, oh, right, I am allowed to turn right here. But it's just like, it's one of these norms that, but yeah, like things that differ between cities and between domains. So anyway, to answer the original question, we're starting to see robots kind of come into our life, but they're still in what I would say are pretty restricted settings or pretty controlled settings, but we're making a lot of progress. I do think it's going to take still a while to see, for example, your Rosie robot at home being your sous chef, or doing your laundry or stuff like that. It's gonna, like, yeah, I don't, at least 5 to 10 years, I would say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one thing you were saying, just going back to your car example, it's like it's almost as if us humans have to also adopt to like a new environment as to how like like the cars would have to, right? It's just like
Hmm.
super interesting, I guess, in the sense it's like we're kind of facing the same problem, but maybe we're addressing it in different ways. With AI, it's more from an algorithmic way. How do we generalize this kind of data and be more aware of our surroundings? But then for humans, it's like we're actually in a different environment. We need to think and like see and remind ourselves of where we are. That's super interesting. It's like a sense of consciousness almost. Um, okay, I guess next question would just be, since this is a podcast regarding generations and dialogue, how would you say generational attitudes towards like privacy and personalization would influence your kind of research?
Yeah, I mean, privacy and personalization are kind of coming, what is the expression? They're like hitting their heads against each other right now
Yeah.
in human-centered AI. Yeah, so generationally, I think younger generations are much more comfortable with AI knowing a lot about them in exchange for convenience.
Mm,
So like people are increasingly more comfortable with just giving companies their data just
yeah.
because, they really like the TikTok algorithm or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas I think so this is kind of how we interact with recommender systems. You kind of make this pact that I'll give you access to my data and you give me good recommendations. I would say older generations, on the other hand, are much more privacy conscious, and so they're a lot more reticent about who has access to what data of theirs. And so we kind of need to tread this line very carefully in human-centric AI because at the end of the day, we're trying to build these robots and these systems that personalize and like learn about your values and your preferences and your goals and what you care about. But at the same time, try to do that in a way that's least invasive, so minimally invasive, and also requires the least amount of personal information about you, which feels a little bit at odds.
Mhm.
So yeah, that also goes a little bit back to something I was saying a little while back about how we've been trying to think of all these ways in which we can kind of pack a lot of punch in the data that we get from people while also minimizing the amount of effort that we ask them to exert.
Mm.
So I think that's something that we need to pay attention to as a community.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like this question is especially applicable given everyone's reaction during the day that TikTok was banned, right? I remember seeing a lot of videos
Yeah.
where like, I just want TikTok back. They can have my data. It's okay. Would you say there's like any particular dangers as well with like caring too little regarding privacy? Or like, what would you say as a society, maybe not even like the builders of AI, but how should we kind of like adapt a certain mentality towards like what we're willing to give away in terms of information versus not.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely risks to
Mhm.
giving away your data. Who knows what that company or that entity is going to do your data with your data. I do notice that when I interact with these recommender systems, I do tend to like I am mindful of like, well, I also know how these systems work in a way, and so
Exactly.
like, let's say I want to see more cat videos, then I'm just going to artificially spend more time on this cat video so that the algorithm adapts right now and like shows me more cat videos. So I know how to do that kind of thing. And so I suppose, but at the same time, it's like you could say that, oh, well, the system has now learned that you have a preference for cat videos. Is that something that you want to leak? And I guess in this case, I'm like, oh yes, I'm okay leaking that. And in fact, not only am I okay leaking this information, but I'm also manipulating the algorithm to my advantage because I know this is how it works. So I'm just gonna spend more time on this such that it learns to show me more of this content.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess if you're wary of sharing certain types of personal information, I mean, there's obviously the hard settings that you can look into. Like for example, I turn off microphone or video or whatever, that kind of privacy settings for these recommender apps. But there's softer things that you can do, like the manipulation that I just described of like,
Mm.
okay, well, if you don't want to get political content, then don't engage with political content, and therefore the AI system is going to learn that you're not interested in political content, which may or may not be true, but you just don't want it to know about your political leanings, say, or like
Yeah.
you don't want the AI system to know about your preference in certain axes. So I'm just going to limit my interaction with that axis.
That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel like it's super interesting to hear you like from like discussing as like an AI researcher who's creating these models to also like kind of gaining a sense of like, okay, this is what these models are inherently looking for. This is kind of how I can like cheat the system and make sure that I know what part of my like data I'm giving away, right? That's super interesting. All right. Then I guess from an alternative perspective, it's like, do you have any advice for young researchers who are interested in human-centric AI?
Yeah, I think human-centric AI, and I guess what I do, human-robot interaction, they're very interdisciplinary fields. So I would give the advice of trying to dip your toes or at least stay informed with multiple fields like cognitive science or cognitive psychology. And there's also the technical aspect of like AI, but there's also a lot that you can learn from reading what people are thinking about humans and how we model humans and human behavior in econometrics, cognitive science, and human-computer interaction kind of fields. So that would be my advice, to just try to get perspectives from different fields, since human-centric computing is such an interdisciplinary area.
Definitely, definitely. And how would you say we can ensure that future AI systems remain adaptable to like diverse human experiences?
Um, Probably by designing AI that asks uh, with an asterisk rather than assumes. So I don't think we should build AI that thinks, okay, this is my training from the factory. I'm never going to change this ever.
Mm,
You need to have AI that adapts on the fly to new information, and like we need that someone needs to think about how do we have these kind of online interactive like fast adaptation capabilities. um and so yeah, I would say that we need to think about kind of human in the loop style algorithms and pursuing that kind of those kinds of avenues, and not just think about passive learning in the
mm.
factory.
That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like it's like almost the sense like the AI should be able to know like if they don't know a piece of information rather than like maybe making it up, it's like it's important for them to like ask a question and say, maybe I don't know the answer. Like, could you inform me? Yeah, that's super
Yeah.
interesting. Then yeah, all right. And then kind of a follow-up on that then. Do you think human-centric AI will evolve differently in global regions with unique cultural needs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I was saying, AI doesn't exist in a vacuum, and so it's going to reflect the cultures that it's designed for and the cultures that it uh I guess it's designed to serve or to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, what works in the US is not going to translate well to Japan or to Eastern Europe or what
Yeah.
have you. So we're going to have to think about um kind of closing those cultural gaps, or again, AI that's adaptable to
Yeah.
different cultures, different people, different human preferences, different norms.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. And I think one of the last questions that we have then is what lessons from old generations in AI research do you think the younger generation should not forget about?
That's a great question. I don't know how I feel about it because I don't think of myself as coming from the old
Oh,
generation.
definitely not.
Um, let's see. I think when I think of older generations in AI, I think of people who like keep talking about reliability and robustness, and they keep like the AI skeptics keep talking about how but these systems hallucinate and these systems are not reliable, and like what are the metrics, how do you ensure safety and all of that. And I think there is a lot of merit to this, especially in what I do with robotics. I can't have an LLM hallucinate controls for my robots because they're just not going to work, or even worse, they're going to do something very dangerous.
Mhm.
And so I think we should be talking about or keeping in mind reliability and robustness in all of these systems. I think it's very tempting to just be like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the like EAC, like effective acceleration. Like it's very tempting to just be like accelerate. Um, but like I do think we need to kind of have optimistic caution, of like, okay, let's be optimistic about what we can do with AI. It's awesome, it's great, it's so helpful, but also proceed with caution a little bit, and try to just every time you're about to release a new AI capability into the world, just double check and ask yourself like what side effects could there be to this
Yeah.
systems, how much should like what should this be designed for, how much are there like alternate maybe nefarious use cases to this system that I should think about preventing.
Yeah, I think that definitely emphasizes the importance between like intent versus like the actual impact that it can have on the world. I think we've
Yeah,
definitely seen a lot of that. I think a little bit with robots, but I think now, especially with like, generative AI, I think we've
yeah.
definitely seen a lot of cases like that. So I think it's super interesting that it's like not just making sure that your technology is applicable and like helping a group, but also ensuring that it's like not going to have like any negative side effects for a group that maybe is not intended. Yeah. Okay, amazing. And I guess the last question, I think you definitely did kind of answer this, but just to state it more explicitly, how would you envision AI systems are able to like actually bridge current like gaps that we have in terms of global accessibility and inclusion, whether or not it's
Mm.
already created by technology?
Yeah, I think AI has the potential to be a pretty great equalizer if we
Yeah.
design it right. So think about translation, like language translation, or about one day assistive robots, or adaptive learning systems. Like these tools can be made much more accessible to people with disabilities, with language barriers, or with limited resources or capabilities. But we do have to be a little intentional in how we train these systems, because again, if AI is trained on biased data, then it could reinforce existing inequalities rather than just basically you're kind of reinforcing the thing that you're trying to prevent rather than
Exactly.
breaking down these barriers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think one thing that you're kind of like also leading to is like we really need to ensure that like not just the data, but also like maybe the team which is making this AI, like they're aware, they're like
Yes.
full of
Yeah.
representation.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
like definitely nowadays I'm definitely seeing more women in STEM, but I feel like when you go to a big AI conference, for example, you still see it's like even like just in terms of that, it's like it's definitely still a little disproportionate, and that's just only one of so many different factors that we have to account for. So yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, I think that was the last question. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Bobu. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Triple AI, and we will try to get back to Dr. Bobu if anyone has like any particular questions. Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. That was the second episode of Generations in Dialogue, Bridging Perspectives in AI, and we'll see you the next time.